Welcome to Ed's Not Dead. I'm Robbie Dodd. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. C.H. Siddons. Hey, Mr. Sids.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back. And of course, Mr. Peter Crable. Hey, Mr. Crabes.
Hey, what's going on, Rob?
Did he just call me Rob? That's almost as bad as Bob. Anyway, welcome back.
Hey there, Bob.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. We are glad you can join us. As always, you can find us at Ed's Not Dead PC on Twitter and check out the website, edsnotdead.com. Ed's Not Dead is brought to you by Ed's Not Dead Media, full service educational media company focusing on leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. Fellas, it is good to see you on the Zoom. We have a great show tonight, don't we?
We do. Who do we have on today?
All right. We are going to be introducing, I came up with this name, the Superintendent Series.
Hey, very excited.
A new series.
A new series. The Superintendent Series is an examination of the courage and lived experience of school system leaders and the successes and challenges of public school systems. There's been plenty of those over the last 3 years. We'll be interviewing 3 courageous leaders who are leading their school systems to better days. And our first guest tonight, we are immensely lucky to have Dr. Daryl Williams, superintendent of the Baltimore County Public School System, as the first guest on the Ed's Not Dead Superintendent Series. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, very excited. And in all seriousness, Robbie did come up with the idea, which is, I want to give him props for.
And he scheduled his first guest. This is his second guest. Really.
And so we'll put it up there in the fridge right next to all the blog posts he's written as well.
So I love it how something relatively good that I did becomes a joke.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. It is. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you've done those two things. Like, it is a huge weight off my shoulders.
And I've actually contributed to the show notes. I've put some things in the show notes over the last couple shows.
You did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So go ahead, Mr. Graves.
No, I made an offhand comment. Keep going.
So the Superintendent Series is going to start tonight with Dr. Daryl Williams. And then we are going to surprise our loyal listeners as the weeks go on with our next 2 superintendents. So tune in. And we are also going to jump into an interesting piece that Mr. Siddons found at NYU. Students were failing organic chemistry. Who was to blame? When I read this, Casey, and we're not going to get into it quite yet, but when I read it, I kept being reminded about your ability to teach calculus. And
I did think about that, and I must say that
I know
I've already apologized. I've apologized publicly before,
but it will never get old.
All right. Well, this is going to be an interesting piece. We'll see where we land on this. So anyway, fellas, how are you? Everything good?
Yeah, doing great.
6 weeks into the school year, Mr. Graves.
Yeah, doing very well. Unfortunately, I think like much of the Mid-Atlantic been mired in this unseasonal cold and gray and rainy. Starting to wear on me a little bit. Day 5 of no sunshine and cloudy every day and unseasonably cold. I'm just not mentally prepared for it.
I believe we're still under the remnants of Ian, aren't we? Or is it something that Ian triggered? It's kind of like a secondary Ian storm, I think.
I did not follow it that closely.
Yeah, well,
I think it is the tail end of that storm, or at least the remnants of that. And I will say, driving to school and seeing the temperature of 47 on my dashboard was a little jarring. There wasn't even like a transition, which was... in our last pod, we talked about the, no consequence environment of fall and not having to worry about wearing a jacket or not. And now
we jinxed it.
Yeah. It's the power of Ed's Not Dead.
One of my dear friends and colleagues had a very snarky comment. I guess we were talking about whether to run the AC or not. And
Yes, you made a comment about squeaker millennials, I believe.
No,
Casey and I.
Yes, I did, and he said it was ridiculous that I was talking about whether to run the AC or not. We should be a little rain. We should be feeling grateful compared to folks in Florida. I was reading about Sanibel Island, which I visited once, which is a beautiful place. And I guess there's a Sanibel Island elementary school that is no longer in working order.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So there was the question about how kids were going to be educated So they really got hit hard. I'm sure it's impacted schools down there, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably going to be closed for weeks. I mean, it's those areas that got hard hit. I mean, the devastation was total.
Yeah.
Mr. Siddons, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. My grade level that I'm in charge of, they had a wonderful day, wonderful couple days. They were really, I don't know, really happy with them.
Good. Students, you mean?
Yes, my students, the teachers, we're doing all right, rolling along. It's nice to get in like the middle of the first quarter, and things have kind of calmed down from the beginning of the year, and we're starting to get into a groove. It's nice.
We are in the 6th week of school. It's pretty remarkable.
It's wild
how fast the school year flies by. We'll be the end of the first quarter, and then before you know it, we're at the winter break. It's pretty crazy. All right. We have some show feedback.
We do.
It's rather inauspicious because I think it's almost a year old.
So timely.
But it's going to be great. Mr. Krabs, what do you have?
Well, as we were discussing show feedback, I go, oh man, we've not looked on our iTunes page in.
You were wondering about our
literally
iTunes
about 9 months.
rating.
Yeah, I was like, geez, we had consistently said if anybody left us feedback, we would read it on air.
Right.
And then we promptly, didn't check it for 9 months. But I do have something from, so D McC teacher, DMCC, big M, little C, big C. So whatever that is.
DMCC.
Appreciate it. It's from February of 2022. So good.
All right.
Super, super timely. But this individual, I assume is a teacher, says, are they educators or comedians? That was the title of it.
Wow.
Because we're pretty funny. That's why.
Yeah, I guess.
Because, well, both, I guess. The three guys are fun to listen to, but provide thoughtful ed content with amazing guests. I'm not sure how they get the top names for interviews, Casey Siddons, but the guest list is always very impressive. So thank you.
That's pretty awesome.
That's top 5 show feedback.
That's pretty good.
Over 6 seasons.
And I didn't even have to pay anybody for that one.
Yeah.
We have a loyal listener named Dr. Cohen, who I've been urging to leave us show feedback. We have a lot of loyal listeners out there that could be leaving us feedback, but they don't. So we'll just, I'm publicly shaming him to see if it'll prompt anyone else.
We'll put something officially in writing to read on there.
It'll prompt him to text me some show feedback. Anyway, thank you for that, Mr. Krabs. All right, Mr. Siddons. At NYU, students were failing the completely challenging, from what I've heard, never took it. Based on what I read in the article, I'm glad I never took it. Organic chemistry. And it all comes back to a certain professor. Tell us about this piece.
Yeah, so I shared this article the other day. I read it and I felt like it was good pod fodder. And the title is, at NYU, students were failing organic chemistry. Who was to blame? And Maitland Jones Jr., respected professor of NYU, defended his standards, but students started a petition and the university just dismissed him. So let me share a few quotes with you all. In the field of organic chemistry, Maitland Jones Jr. has a storied reputation. He actually wrote the textbook that he used in his class, which I thought was a little bit of an ego move. But hey, if you write a textbook, all the power to you. He taught the subject for decades, first at Princeton, then NYU. But last spring, students signed a petition against him, and students were saying that the high stakes course that was apparently notorious for ending med school dreams was just too hard. And they blamed Dr. Jones for their poor test scores. And in addition, Dr. Jones's course evaluations were by the worst, not only among members of the chemistry department, this is a quote, but among all of the university's undergraduate science courses was the worst. And that was coming from the university itself. And although it seems like he was terminated without appropriate due process, the university seems like they were sick of him. And it obviously seems like it was turning into a PR nightmare. They obviously had concerns over his performance. But on the other hand, it's incumbent on the university to address those concerns, those instructional concerns. So my question to you all and our listeners, who are we behind? Are we behind the students who had legitimate concerns over his instruction and demeanor and his comments and his tone? Or Dr. Jones, who was terminated with what seems like at least from our view, a lack of due process. Mr. Craves, what do you think?
So, for me, it's important to kind of parse this out into two separate areas. So the juicy headline is basically is a hard course, and now we're bending over backwards to allow anybody to pass and reducing rigorous standards and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's like the hook of the article, and whether that's in fact true or not. So I want to address that first. So, I mean, I can't imagine any of the three of us or many educators out there are in favor of watering things down. And I know nothing about organic chemistry, but I did go to college, and in popular media, it always has the title is like the flunker outer, or whatever the term is, of just weeding out those that can't cut it from those that can. And I think that in and of itself is fine. I mean, at some point you got to learn it. You got to know the content. You got to be able to show that you know the content. So I think in that sense, there's no issues with it at all. Having high standards and having people do very difficult things is what we need in all professions, not just whether you're going to be a chemist or whatever you're going to do with that. I think some of the other parts of this, though, is despite a very despite a very prestigious resume, at some point, the world passes you by.
Ooh.
And I'm not being, I don't know if that's the case, but the assumption is, look at this guy's resume, and he automatically is qualified to still continue to teach. And he may be, but I'm saying, looking at a resume as you continue on in your career, I think at some point, maybe you lose touch with what kids are like today. And to think that you could teach the same way, even in college and even with organic chemistry, as you could 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I don't know if that's still really possible.
He did say before Dr. Dodd, you come in there, it did say he hasn't changed his style or methods in a good many years. The students have changed, though, and they were asking for and expecting more support from the faculty, and they're struggling. Dr. Dodd, what do you think?
I saw another quote that jumped out at me, Casey, was I guess from the head of the department. Dr. Jones, quote, learned to teach during a time when the goal was to teach at a very high level and rigorous level. We hope that students will see that putting them through that rigor is doing them good. But then, I'm sorry, this was Dr. Canary. He hasn't changed his style or methods in a good many years. The students have changed, though, and they were asking, is that what you just said?
I'm curious as to what you think about that particular quote, because
you hit us with the either or Sean Hannity ploy. And I guess I would put it on NYU. First of all, I'm stunned that the head of the department publicly commented.
I thought that same thing
on his teaching methods. And I'm curious. I don't know enough about higher ed to know, why it takes a student petition to have a sense of whether a professor is meeting students' needs or not.
Right.
Certainly student voice is important. I know it's pretty commonplace now, right, that professors do feedback surveys in their courses. And I think those actually carry some weight now in higher ed. But I'm not sure why NYU had to let it get to this point.
Right.
Where it was, either he goes or the kids are going to, do a sit-in in the president's office. And that's kind of where it seemed like it got to. These are tough issues. We have this discussion all the time. I mean, competitive environments are, sometimes they're tough to tease apart. You can have professors that expect a lot, and I'm sure that we've all had teachers that seemed inflexible and had incredibly high standards. But I know that interestingly, those folks always got the most out of me.
Right.
I always wanted to perform my best for those that had the highest standards and sometimes seemed unforgiving. And I don't know. I'm totally torn on this one. I mean, I feel like there's blame to go around. I think somebody probably could have communicated with the students better about what was being done to support this professor and maybe change. And if he wouldn't change, then
and one of the things that they mentioned in the article is that a lot of the students that wrote the petition and signed the petition never even asked for his termination. They just wanted him to be more responsive and the university to be more supportive of their needs. They never asked for him to be terminated. So to me, it seems like
NYU wanted to get rid of him.
That's what I'm thinking. He was looking professor. No, he was just on a yearly contract. So it just seems to me that the university not only misstepped in terms of providing due process, but we don't know what's going on behind closed doors about, like, did they even try to support them? Is there a support mechanism for struggling instructors? And if so, what does that even look like at the higher education level? I have no idea.
I'm not sure they even had to provide him with any quote unquote due process.
Yeah. I think
but there is an attitude at higher education where, and it says it here, where this organic chemistry course is seen as what they call a weed out class, where it's like, if you can't make it, then you're not going to be in med school. So, I mean, to me, that screams of, well, we want the best of the best people that can function in an organic chemistry environment, because they're going to be taking care of our kids, our parents, us, and they need to know things at a molecular level in ways that maybe they couldn't if they weren't doing that kind of course.
I guess I wonder sometimes in those kinds of courses, in those super rigorous weed out courses, if the professor or whoever is teaching it doesn't kind of become one in the same with the course. In other words, the archetype of who that character is that teaches that goes along with kind of the expectations of a course like that. So this organic chem is really hard. So, I mean, I think we could all kind of picture what that professor might be like, right? So, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe they need to, maybe in those really difficult courses, you need somebody else.
I think it's a good point, Robbie. And I struggle because I'm thinking of the other quote that stuck out to me. Do these courses really need to be punitive in order to be rigorous? Mm-hmm. Is there another pathway? If you're not passing this class, is there another way for you to be successful in organic chemistry? I don't know what that would look like, but I feel like it's incumbent upon the university to provide that support. If the folks are willing to pay the money, the thousands upon thousands of dollars to be there, then what kind of support is being provided to the students to make it work?
And I think that for me leads to a question about what seemed to be the professors, various professors, and students I think were successful in that class as well, point of view, is that the university in this instance catered to catered to the complaints of a group of students who were not doing well because they weren't putting in the time. And basically were giving in to some students that, I guess were meant to be weeded out or whatever the case may be. I mean, what do you think about that perspective?
I think
would a school like NYU even do that?
My initial feeling on that is that two things can be true. You can have kids that are not spending the appropriate amount of time and cheating and sending text messages around of answers and stuff like that. And you can also have a professor who's not being responsive to the needs of the kids in front of them, right?
And those things they're not mutually exclusive. They can be
Correct.
Related, right?
Correct.
I thought the criticism, I'm always careful. You all know about criticizing young people. But I don't think it's a great thing for ratings anyway for the show. But some of the accusations about what kids were doing didn't sound a lot different than what probably kids are doing in most courses.
Right.
Texting each other answers, not coming to class. I mean, those were all, I felt like that was, I mean, maybe there was, my sense was that there were legitimate concerns about his style.
Right.
Certainly not about his content knowledge. He's a giant in organic chemistry. He has a textbook that is obviously highly regarded and used in universities. So it's a shame, sometimes these personnel issues end this way.
Yeah.
And I wonder if NYU, they just didn't seem very nimble in how they dealt with it. And I wonder if it had to end this way, or could have, maybe there was an off ramp in some other way other than petitions and just an unceremonious, we're not picking up your next contract.
Right. I guess on a side note, a follow up for us, something to think about is, and I've railed about this in the past. I'm sure I've complained, but at some point, I feel like there's always been a push internally and externally in K-12 education to continuously push our teachers to keep getting better and to keep improving and to push your practices and try to improve your pedagogy. I actually don't even know the extent to which that's done in higher education. My assumption is not much, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, and what is incumbent upon professors or teachers to look at the kids that are before them, the students that are before them, and figure out how best for them to learn.
Right.
And in this case, I don't know. I don't know enough about organic chemistry to say. It just seems like the fact that the university was willing to do it in such an expeditious manner after receiving, I'd have to look back at the number. It was
82 out of
350,
less than 100 signed a petition. That's not exactly a groundswell. That's like, wow, we're under so much public pressure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's more to the story. I think that they might have been looking for an excuse. There might have been concerns previously. Who knows? But this notion that I know is getting all of the bandwidth of some people, that he had high standards and he was fired for it. I have a hard time kind of taking that as gospel.
Right. Yeah, that's, but like you started out by saying that sells the whole, we're dumbing down every level of education. Everybody loves to read about how, we're not holding kids to high standards like back in the old days.
Right. Back in the old days, I knew kids were good until just a couple years ago. Then all of them changed. Yeah. Like, well, yeah, maybe, but maybe you didn't change and everything else did.
All right, Casey, you need to book an organic chemistry teacher or professor.
All right, I'm gonna look into that. We're gonna find out.
We need to get some super smart chem person.
I'm gonna try to find a guy who's written a textbook on organic chemistry.
I don't know if you have to go that far, but just somebody that knows something about oxidation reduction reactions.
Oh.
All right, everybody. So I'm gonna cut us off. Thanks for joining us in this discussion. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, or if you're an organic chemistry professor who's recently laid off, please contact us and we'll get you on the pod. But until then, we're going to take a short break and we'll be coming right back.
Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead. Fellas, it is time to unveil the superintendent series. I couldn't be more excited with our next guest, Dr. Daryl Williams. Dr. Williams, he is currently the superintendent of the Baltimore County Public School system. He's a highly experienced, successful educational leader, as he just mentioned to us off air, 35 years. He's held a variety of important roles in public ed. And I didn't even ask him for a bio. Once upon a time, I always used to say that Dr. Williams had the best resume of anyone that I knew in education. I think he started his career maybe as a math teacher in the DC public school system. He served as an administrator at the middle school and high school level in the Montgomery County Public Schools. He was the principal of two of the largest and most high-profile high schools in MCPS, Gaithersburg High School and Montgomery Blair High School. He's an associate superintendent, and now he is the superintendent of BCPS. Dr. Williams, welcome to Ed's Not Dead. We're thrilled to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here. I'm honored to join you all. Looking forward to this conversation.
All right. So let's jump in. As we slowly kind of emerge from the pandemic, what do you think are the priorities of public school systems across the nation, and specifically the things that are at the top of your list as a current superintendent?
So thank you for that. I think we all know there was some learning loss over the past 2 years. So what's top on my list is always about teaching and learning, and knowing that we have to accelerate learning. We have to fill in some gaps, yet still teaching the standards to students, whatever course, whatever grade level. But we must recognize the social emotional well-being, not only of our students, their families, but also our staff. So we saw some hope this past year as we brought back many of the systems across the state, brought back students 5 days a week. And that was an adjustment. And then the start of this year, just continuing that work. So for us in Baltimore County, we've always focused on learning. So the accelerated learning, social emotional well-being, data literacy. We have done some extensive training and have new tools. So we have on-time data of how our students are doing, which then help us to adjust, correct, or intervene. And so I think that's where all of our schools are dealing with at this time of our year, start of a school year. And it's really building on what we did last year.
So I've never known you that you were not an educational leader. So when we had this interview scheduled, I was thinking about your leadership and how it's potentially evolved over the years. So you were a relatively new superintendent during an unprecedented time in public ed. How did your leadership change during the pandemic? And did you learn anything about yourself as a leader that informs your work in the future?
So that's a good question. I came to Baltimore County in 2019, July of 2019. The pandemic happened in March of 2020. I was in my first year as the superintendent of Baltimore County in a new area. I knew Montgomery County. Mm-hmm. I was there for 25 years. I had the connections, but to start a new role in a new county and to experience the beginning of the pandemic, one, I've always learned it's about collaboration. It's about enjoying the work, but also having that urgency. So you have the urgency. But what I learned is that this work we had to do during the pandemic, it involved folks outside of education. Now, this was something we didn't go to school to know how to manage a pandemic. That's not our forte. So I've learned that I've always knew this. I like to have smart people around me. Mm-hmm. And I love to collaborate, and I love teams. You got to have a strong team. And so we've learned a whole lot of things this last 2 years. So I think I pulled on some of my experiences, but it was still hard. New county, new role, mm-hmm. not having all those connections. Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot of trust that I had to build while doing the work. That's challenging from anybody.
Can I pipe in, Crable?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So we've asked this question a lot with our guests about how do we help with the teacher shortage, the quote unquote teacher shortage. We had a whole pod about it last time. And, you've done the hiring at a school where you've had trouble hiring people, I'm sure. You're now experiencing it, I imagine, at a district level. BCPS, for our listeners, is, I think, like the 25th largest district in the nation. So my initial question was going to be about what is BCPS doing to increase or support teacher shortages? But I'm curious from your perspective, like, what do we need to do as a society to increase the pipeline? Because there's some things as a superintendent that I feel like are out of reach. But what are your thoughts on that?
So I'll start with the society. We have to make teachers or educators, administrators, we have to make that profession where it was when probably you started, when I started. Sometimes I worry that our own people talk badly about the profession. So folks hear that and they hear all of these negative stories. And I just had a meeting earlier where I explained to this group, I said, the situations that you're reading about in the news, that's 1% of our population, if that. Yeah. 99% of the other students are doing what they need to do. And so I think we have to show the importance of the profession again. And to your point, as a principal, I could sell my school and the reputation of it and the folks around that building really didn't allow someone to talk something negative about the school. And folks wanted to come. We had to turn people away because of that desire. And that was in many of the schools that I worked, not just the two that Robbie described, but as a superintendent, it's redirecting some individual and recorrecting some false narratives out there. Things happen, things will happen, but that does not paint the picture of the system. When I look at all of our seniors and when they graduate and all the places they're going to and what they're interested in, and then this past class, or the class of 21, they earn over $180 million of scholarships. They go into all these wonderful places. We're trying to celebrate that because there's a lot of stories that you just don't see on the front page or you don't hear about it on the media. So I think we have to do a better job of making sure the profession is where it needs to be. But we also have to look at work conditions. I haven't been in the classroom as a teacher in a while, but when I started in 1988 teaching and compared to what we're doing now, there are vast differences in terms of tools, strategies, and curriculum. And so we really have to make sure the work condition is conducive for this younger generation, those who are young Generation Zs, and they want to be out there and they want to explore different things and they starting families. We really got to make sure the work conditions and compensation packages are going to really attract and keep our teachers and our administrators.
So I want to follow up on, you mentioned a little bit about education in society. And, in the last couple of years, education has certainly come to the forefront of many people's minds, really in the political arena. And as with most things in the political arena, things become very simplistic or, overly wrought one side or the other. So my question is a superintendent, how do you navigate that, and how do you decide what issues to speak about while still being a superintendent and a promoter of public education for all students, while also knowing that you have these really fierce battles going on of people who have sometimes, completely polar opposite views of education, what education should be doing, what teachers should be doing, and so on?
Well, I sometimes, Phil, I have to pick and choose my battle, right? So for me, I will always gird my work and my comments to our strategic plan. And by the way, that was something I did my first year. So let me add that on to the work coming in, and we're dealing with an outdated strategic plan. The strategic plan is guiding the work, and what our measures and what we're trying to get to. And so we do have opposing opinions. We do have folks who will try to have the topic for the week or for the month. And thank you very much. Thank you for your viewpoint. We will consider that. We believe in having all voices, but there's some, I can't give the time and space to something that's going to derail me off the plan, because I'm really looking at equity. I'm really looking at closing gaps. We have gaps. Many of our systems, we have gaps. So the political side is I thought it was large as a high school principal It's even more as a superintendent, especially when you're dealing with a large systems. There's always different opinions and viewpoints, and folks want to take you down a road. And we will engage, but at some point, I got to do the work. The folks have to do the work. And so that's a big piece. The political frame of a superintendent is large, particularly in this area. Baltimore County is the third largest system in the state of Maryland. And so I collaborate with Prince George's County, my friend Monica over there, and the largest is Montgomery County. We collaborate with Monifa because we see some similarities, but there are also some differences. So that's a big piece of the work, trying to stay focused and to see what's happening in our schools and to monitor the data. But also I have to make sure we're keeping our focus on that strategic plan.
So that's a great segue. Strategic plan. I know, having worked for you, Dr. Williams, how much you care about student outcomes, how kids do. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's about in public education. So of all the effects that came out of the pandemic, I think we can all agree that one of the most concerning is the way that it seemed to disproportionately impact students of color academically. So this is kind of a two-parter. Did the pandemic create inequities, or did it shine a spotlight on inequities that already existed? And what do you see as some steps that you're going to take as a superintendent or schools across the nation need to take to address unequal outcomes and inequities in resource access?
So I appreciate that. I think for us, it was shining a light on areas that we knew we weren't meeting the needs of all students. And then the pandemic hit, and I think the numbers increase, right? So we know that. So our approach has always been, what can we do as the adults, right? So school improvement, you've heard this before, school improvement is people improvement, right? But I just couldn't stop there. I just can't say we're going to do more PD, more PD, more PD without really looking at what are our resources that we're providing our schools. So as simple as, and this, I say it as simple as probably the hardest thing to do, is looking at our written curriculum, our taught curriculum, and our assessed curriculum. And then when we have the data, are we able to pivot to meet the needs of our students? So I say all that. The types of courses that we're running, both in person and online. There's some students who are able to manage both. So we increase the number of virtual learning online. Summer programming, extended day, weekends, all these different options about more time for students. And then being very crystal clear, looking at some of our most impacted student groups, African American, free and reduced meals, and special ed. And I will probably add in our English language learners and be very intentional that whatever we do, how is that working for those student groups? And if it's not working, what more can we do? Or do we need to change it completely? I think that's the important role that we do every day in the schoolhouse and in the central office. But ultimately, I'll just end where you started. Our goal is to get our kids ready to do whatever they want to do after high school, whether it's military, career, or college, 2-year or 4-year. It is our role to make sure they are prepared. Yes, I would love to have a 100% graduation rate. Yes, I would love that. We're not there, but I want to make sure we meet the needs because not everybody wants to go to college. And so we make sure they are ready for a career. So I just share that as that's what I monitor. And sometimes that keeps me up at night. Just, are we doing enough for our students? And the last piece I'll just end, one thing I've learned is the importance of partnerships. So the schoolhouse cannot do it by itself.
Right.
We have to rely on our community partners. So I'll just put in a plug. This past July, we had a community partnership fair. We had over 200 people to come in to share the work that they're doing in schools and to share how best they can collaborate with other partners in other schools. It's actually, the feedback was well received, very positive. And that, I believe that's the beauty of a school. When you have that partnership, working with the school, you can really meet the needs. And this also shows to the families that we do collaborate with people outside of the walls. So that's important. I think that's the one thing I'm most proud about is this most recent work with our community partnerships.
Awesome. All right. Before we go to the painful quiz, I think Mr. Siddons has one last question.
I had a different question, and I wanted to end on a different note. And your last response made me think of it indifferently. Is like, it's easy to get in the doldrums about where education is, about where our society is. What in your position and where you've come from, like, what gives you hope every day for our education and our kids?
So what gives me hope, at least 2 times, 3 times a week, I visit schools. When I sit down and talk to students and they tell me about their vision, their desires, and then I say, well, what are you doing about it? And they start to describe some of the work. It may not be everything that will get them to that vision. That gives me hope. I'm talking about elementary school kids. They get excited when they see someone coming into their building and sitting down during lunchtime. And you can go and look at my tweets. I'm out there in the building, sitting down there in classrooms, just interacting. But that really gives me the hope that, this is why we chose education. So when we get to see just what are on the minds of our students, and as I go to the middle schools and high schools, to hear the incredible stories and sometimes the struggles that they've overcome. And I say, you ought to be proud about where you are. You might not be where you want to be, but just think about how far you've come. And then when I see those seniors and I go around spring, I go to all of my high schools, my 24 high schools, and I sit down with the senior leaders. And I always ask them, tell me what worked for you as a student through your educational career, and what do we need to change? And I share that feedback with senior leadership. And I look forward to those moments. If you're having a bad day, as you all know, as educators, go into the classroom and interact with students. They will pick you up. They will ask good questions. They always comment about my clothes or my hair or my shoes.
Why you wearing that?
It's the best thing because, they're our future and we want to make sure they are prepared because they'll be taking care of all of us at some point. So I still have hope. I see the glass half full. I'll tell you, that's how I look at things.
I love that.
And I do have one last question. Sorry. The one last question. Very, very important question. So you get out to a lot of schools, you go to a lot of lunches probably. Do you have a go-to lunch order in one of your schools? Is there a
whatever they listen, I'm glad you said it. It's whatever they're serving. I'm trying to show to the community we're doing more fresh fruit and vegetables. So when I go and it's lunchtime, I sometimes don't go during lunchtime, but I go during lunchtime. I'm making a point to, of course, acknowledge the office staff, building services, our cafeteria workers. And then I'll go, I have a PIN number. I have an account, I punch in my account and I get whatever the order is. But I make sure I get my 2 fruits and 2 vegetables because that's part of what we serve.
Are you a chocolate milk or a white milk guy? Is that still a thing?
That's a thing. I'd rather drink water. I know that's a part of
me too. I know, but they always got both the regular. And
that's the guidelines. You have to serve milk, but I will go. I'll go for water.
I was a chocolate milk guy as a kid, but then as a teacher, I transitioned to white milk.
Oh man,
I don't know. All right. Fellas, one thing the next time we get Dr. Williams on the show, we didn't ask him much about the principalship. So we need to do that the next time.
Yes.
We're a little short on time. We got to do the quiz. All right, Casey.
All right, Dr. Williams. So we know you are the superintendent of Baltimore County Public Schools, aka BCPS. But we want to know what you know about the other famous BC, which is British Columbia.
I told you, Dr. Williams.
British Columbia, if you're not sure, is the westernmost province of Canada, situated between the Pacific Ocean and the Rocky Mountains. Are you ready, Dr. Williams? If you answer 2 out of the 3 correct, you'll win a Ed's Not Dead sticker.
And no Googling, Dr. Williams. Put your phone down. All right, here we go.
All right, number 1. British Columbia is one of the top 3 producing regions of blueberries and what other fruit in the world? Is it A, cranberries, B, salmon berries, or C, grape nuts?
Cranberries.
Cranberries is correct.
Hey,
1 for
nice.
1. Well done.
All
right, this next one's a toughie. No, B, British Columbia is home to the world's largest what? It was originally created for the Expo 1986 and then acquired by the city of Duncan, British Columbia, where it is on display today. And a hint, the item is 68 yards long, weighs 62,000 pounds, and is therefore 40 times the size of a regular one of these. And is it A, a hockey goal, a B, a hockey stick, or C, a hockey jersey?
Oh, that's a
Whoa.
good one.
A tough one there.
Hockey goal.
Oh, incorrect. It's actually a hockey stick. Sorry
Don't despair.
about that.
One
You
more.
got one more chance.
Casey, that was the longest question in the world. Was that Edmonton?
No, if you were listening,
Duncan.
Robbie, as usual, it's actually Duncan. But thanks for your input. I
Duncan.
appreciate
Okay, all right.
appreciate your opinion on that.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
it's Canada. I knew it was hockey.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. All right,
All
number
right.
3.
All right.
Speaking of world records, BC resident Sarwan Singh, who lives in the city of Surrey in the south of British Columbia, holds the world's record for longest blank on a living male. It measures over 7 feet. And is it A, a beard, B, fingernails, or C, eyelashes?
It's creepy no matter what the answer is.
There's no other option. No other choice. Nails, beard.
I would say beard.
Beard is correct.
Oh, Dr.
Well
Williams.
done. 2 out of 3. You win.
Woo.
Well done, Dr. Williams.
Very nice. Very nice job. All right.
Thank you so much. That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
And you didn't even have to study. See?
No.
Yeah, and 2 out of 3 on a KC quiz is it's demonstrating mastery.
It's a demonstrating mastery.
Absolutely.
I think it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, on behalf of our partners here, Dr. Williams, it was amazing to have you as the first guest in the superintendent series. I'm not going to make you recite your Twitter or LinkedIn accounts, but people can find you on those platforms, right?
Absolutely. And invite me back anytime.
Okay, we'll get you back on the show. Thanks again to Dr. Williams for joining Ed's Not Dead. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead. As always, fellas, we are brought to you by Ed's Not Dead Media, a full-service educational media company focusing on leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. Once again, thank you to Dr. Daryl Williams, superintendent of the Baltimore County Public Schools, for being our first guest in the new END superintendent series.
Superintendent series.
Dr. Williams killed it, didn't he, fellas?
It's great.
Yeah.
He was.
It was a big get.
He was really good. I mean, there were a lot of, and obviously we weren't video recording Zoom, but it was 7:30 in the evening and he had a beautifully pressed white shirt on, a perfect tie and cufflinks. And I thought, man, he's probably had a long day.
Yeah.
We appreciate him giving us the time.
Yeah.
We do. All right. So, tune in next time for the next surprise superintendent in the superintendent series. All right, Mr. Siddons, are you with us? You've been zoning out some tonight in the show.
No, I'm here. I'm ready to go. I've had it up to here with your critiques of my attention level. Okay. Mr. I checked my phone and I'm texting.
I don't do that.
Well,
Yeah, you never do that.
I hope you have it together for a new segment. I don't think we've done this before.
That is
Yes, we have.
so
Yes, we have.
wrong.
Yes, we have.
We have
So
done
a
this,
segment that we've done before and
We've
bring
done
it back.
we've done this twice.
Let's
I
not
believe.
pee in Mr. Crable's cornflakes. He's excited about the segment. Go ahead, Mr. Crable.
It's called Stock Up, Stock Down.
All right.
Cue the music.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting a nice vocal thing.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll see in post production if that happens. Anyway, so I'm just going to give you, a word, a phrase, an idea, and you'll say whether you think it's trending up or trending down. You can give a little brief explanation, but as this is our outro segment, we usually try and keep it a little brief. So no, not too much talking, Casey, because I know now that you're super engaged, you might want to really get after it, but not too much talking. Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right.
He's really happy with this right now. Okay. So first up, we're going to go globally. Stock up, stock down on the teaching profession. Mr. Dodd, where are you? Where are we globally on the teaching profession?
Did he just call me Mr. Dodd?
Sorry. Doctor.
Bobby Dobbs.
The teaching profession. We are stock down.
Stock down. Why do you say that?
I knew this. This was a tough one. I mean,
I know, and you can't do a
glass half full guy. I think right now, and I've heard what Dr. Williams said. He made a great point that we've got to be really careful as educators about how we talk about the profession, because we're in it because we love it. I do think it's, given the question you asked of Mr. Krabs about the political winds, it is a hard profession to be in right now. So I would just say it's stock down for the challenges that it's experiencing.
I think stock down as well, but I think it's temporarily. Oh, yeah. I think we're about to hit a low point. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're about to hit a very low point, and it's going to be very challenging for a lot of
correction.
Market correction. No, I don't think there's a market correction. I think we hit those. Okay. I think we're about to hit we don't know. I don't know how bad it's going to get, but it's going to get worse. But I think when it gets to a certain point of being so challenging, I think a lot of the country is going to wake up to be open to something innovative and new and different to get more people to join the teaching profession.
Oh, I'm with
All
you.
right.
Put a positive spin on it.
Yeah. Sometimes the hardest, sometimes you have to let things hit rock bottom before people realize that you need to make a change.
All right. Next up, somebody that could potentially help with that, Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona. Mr. Siddons, stock up or stock down?
Neutral. I mean,
oh no, come on.
That's not an option.
Let me say stock. I'll say stock up, and it's a politically biased one. I think it's great not to see our president and secretaries and people in the White House and the palace intrigue. I'm so glad to not see that every single day, because I just want people in the federal government to do their job and not have to worry about who's worried about bears in one school or being a ridiculous person in the cabinet. I mean, how many cabinet officials have resigned in Biden's cabinet? Or how many have been fired? Zero. It's just so nice to not have that movement. So stock up for Secretary Cardona.
There you go. Doc D.
I mean, I will go stock up. I think it's a low bar. I think I'm stealing Casey's rationale. I mean, you could only go up from we had a segment on the show about Betsy DeVos. Stock up, but I would like to see more from Miguel Cardona. I just don't, I thought he and the Biden administration could more aggressively kind of address the first question, the teaching profession, education in general, to get the good news out there. And I just haven't, maybe I'm not paying attention, but I haven't seen it. or felt it or heard it.
Yeah. And that's why when I was thinking about this, when I was more of a stock down for that very reason, and I hear you, Casey, about like not wanting, all of the daily drama and all that. But at the same time, the Secretary of Ed, I would want to be like the number one champion in whatever they're doing.
That's fair.
To push forward.
That's fair.
So. But it's not like it's so bad, but just that's what I would want.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, online school.
That's you first.
Mr. Dodd. We're doing this everything. Yeah, Mr.
Why
Dr.
does
Dodd.
he keep calling me Mr. Dodd?
Mr. Dr. Dodd.
Okay.
Mr. Dobbs, because he wants to. He's trying to trigger you.
Trying to bait you.
He's baiting me. So no trigger zone. What is it? Virtual learning?
Online school, virtual learning.
Online school.
Online school.
I don't know why I put online school. It could also be virtual learning.
America Online School.
Sorry.
Okay. Online school is, I would say stock down.
Stock down.
Yeah, I think online school is stock down. I think it's great that kids are back in schools. Teaching and learning, education to me is like inherently a social endeavor. I think it's best done in spaces where we can interact. Do I think that there is a place for online learning or online school?
Where is online school?
I do. And I think we learned a lot from it that can help us, but I think it's seen.
It's not the wave of the future.
It's seen its day. It's stock down.
Okay.
Stock down, big
Dr.
time.
Siddons.
Stock down. It's done. Come on, come back to school.
I don't think it's done.
Put your mask on. Let's be done. Okay.
We're
Anyway.
done with online school.
You know what I was thinking?
Coming from somebody who's about to get into a doctoral program that is all online school.
I'm not doing that. I don't think yet. So anyway, I was also thinking about this the other day, and this is somewhat of an aside. Imagine if the pandemic hit in like 1996 or 97.
You were like 10.
Would everybody have just
12.
gone to school?
12.
Like, what would we have done?
Schools closed. Is that what happened in 1919 or whenever that?
They closed schools.
But even then, but it wasn't as impactful because a lot of kids weren't even in school. Like it wasn't even that long of a day, and then a lot of rural areas didn't even have schools, and so I don't know, just something interesting.
All right,
that's an interesting question. What would we have done?
Crable obviously doesn't care. Dr. Dodd does.
He was ready to move on. Okay.
Dr. Dodd, who turned me on to Tayak and Cubans.
I don't often host segments, so this is
okay.
Trying to keep it engaging.
Someone's got to keep it moving.
I don't really know what I'm doing. Yeah.
All right, we'll go back to online school.
Let's talk more about online school. All right, last one for you, and then we'll get everybody out of here.
No, I see two more in the show.
You want to do all of them? Okay.
Yeah,
all right, let's do them all. All right,
we want you to get this.
All right,
yeah, come on.
Keep your answers a little bit shorter than,
everybody's a critic.
Another one, we have stock up, stock down on the panic over public education. So this kind of ties into a little bit what you were talking about on the first one. So, Mr. Sidai, with the panic over public education, where are we on that?
Oh, man. Stock down. I don't even know how to answer that. I think stock down. I worry. What is it on Pod Save America? They say worry about everything, panic about nothing. And I am stock down. I'm not panicking about public education.
Good to hear. Robert?
Panic over public education. So it is stock down for me.
All right, that's good.
It's just noise. I think schools are back to doing what they do best, and I think that I think they've largely gotten their footing, regained their footing.
All right, that is good to hear. All right, something we know a lot about on this show: higher education. Stock up, stock down. Where do you see higher education in society right now?
I get to go first.
Yes.
Stock down as I do those $6,600 wire transfers from my Maryland 529 account, which I've almost bled to death in a month.
Oh God.
I cannot believe how expensive it is. From a personal perspective, my kid is having a great experience and it shouldn't cost so much. So I am stock down.
Okay.
Stock down, same reasons. It's too expensive. 40% of people who have outstanding student loan debt haven't even gotten a degree. They're not held to account for how much money people earn or the jobs that they get after graduation. I'm talking about I mean college institutions, higher institutions. So stuck down.
All right. Interesting aside, I heard an article or an interview, with the president of Purdue University, former governor of Indiana,
Mitch Daniels.
There you go. Who had a lot to say over what you just mentioned in terms of sort of like quote unquote guaranteed income post college and their focus on.
Yeah. I listened to that too. He kept that Purdue University tuition the same since like 2012.
Yeah.
So every university has an option, has a choice, and it just takes people with courage to make those choices.
Yeah. All right.
How about rest in peace, Kenneth Starr, former president of Baylor.
Yeah, did see that.
That's right. Yeah.
That was
almost sunk our republic, but whatever. Let's rest in peace, Ken Starr, you clown.
Let's move on.
Jeez. Right. Okay. Sorry. Last one.
Didn't he defend Trump in his impeachment too?
He did.
One of his two impeachments. Yeah. I don't have a lot of faith in him. I'm sorry.
I remember that. All right. Last one. Dr. Dodd, you are up. Book bans. We've been hearing a lot about these going into libraries. Nobody's reading these books. They're just hearing about them online and then they're banning them. Are we reach an apex on it? Where are we, stock up or stock down?
Book bans, stock up all the way. They are popular and fun. And who doesn't like, finding books that inform kids about the world and
removing them from
burning them. So I would say from a public perspective, it's stock up on book bans.
So I say it's stock up for a different reason. And I say it because something I read recently is that New York City libraries are lending 25,000 books to non-residents since the spring, including thousands of students who are living under these book bans. So at the end of the day, people are going to read what they want to read, and you can't stop people from trying to learn and do more for themselves.
Pretty wild that that's where we are. I would never, you had asked me a year, 2 years, 5 years, if banning books. I guess it always happens, but it just seems much more prevalent now. I would not have thought that this would have been a real thing.
It's pretty wild.
It's the same folks that were trying to ban Judy Blume books in the 1960s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing?
Yeah. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret, or Forever, or books that talked about sex, talked about teenage identity. It was all fair game back then. It's just it's remarkable how history just continues to repeat itself.
Yeah.
Especially in education. So
Yep.
we have to soldier on. The book bans will go away.
It's upsetting.
They will.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway,
all right. Well, thanks for playing.
That was good, Mr. Krabs, with the stock up, stock down segment.
Nice work.
As always, listeners, if you have ideas about segments or things you'd like us to discuss on the pod, by all means, hit us up on Twitter. We want to know what you're thinking. All right, fellas. Great show. Once again, thanks to Dr. Daryl Williams for being our guest in the superintendent series. We're going to get him back on the show at some point, right?
Wait a minute. Do you have any? I have a question for Crable.
What?
Do you have any apologies for me, or take backs or compliments?
No. I think I did.
No apologies. You're standing strong.
I would like to apologize to Dr. Dodd for continually calling him Mr. Dodd.
Yeah,
I don't know where that came from.
See, I'm fishing for that, Dr. Dodd. Okay, so I'm trying to help you out here.
What did I do? I don't understand. I thought you were actually being serious. That's a segment. It's not on the show notes.
I just threw it in there at the end because I wanted Crable to apologize for calling him Mr. Dodd. I thought I was.
I know. I couldn't really tell if he was just now. To be fair, when you both worked for me, I was Mr. Dodd. So
that's true.
I could.
And I also was Mr. Siddons, but you called me Mr. Sidions.
I did. But that was
I still tell that story. It's good.
The first time the Mr. slipped out, and then you took such umbrage with it that I just had to continue with it.
Well, why not continue to? I was expecting more teasing from Dr. Williams on the show. He took it easy on me.
He did, yeah.
He when I once upon a time worked with him in a professional capacity, he would give it to your boy here pretty good.
I have a compliment.
Yes.
And that's for Dr. Dodd and his booking skills.
Oh.
In booking 2 guests. And you've booked 100% of our guests for this season, and I appreciate it.
I'm going to keep working on it. The pod is a valuable thing. We have to, all 3 of us are invested in it in different ways. Now, when we get off, Mr. Crable's got the unenviable task of putting it all together, which he does a fabulous job on.
That's true.
Oh, compliments.
Compliments. Yes. Flowers, buddy. Flowers for you.
Starting to get uncomfortable. Ed's Not Dead is brought to you by Ed's Not Dead Media, a full-service educational media company focusing on leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. For Casey and Peter, as always, thanks for tuning in. Spread the word about END, and we will catch you next time. See you, fellas.